Pompey 0, Hull 1. Following Pompey the last couple of weeks has been like, I imagine a bungee jump must be, where you go down and then you're buoying and you go up again and then you go down again and you go up, not quite as much as the first time you went up, and then you go down again. And it's been like that. Two absolutely fantastic 3-1 victories on the road against solid sides. And Sheffield United and Hull had a lot in common. I don't think we were that much a better team than Hull as we were a better team than Sheffield United, but we didn't deserve to lose it. A goalless draw would have been a perfectly fair result. The people around me were muttering the same thing when we went in for half-time. Even Stevens, honours even, two pretty good sides. One of them's fighting to get promoted, the other one's fighting to get relegated. You explain that, because they were well matched. Okay, they were away from home and we were at home, so we had that advantage. But the sides looked to me to be pretty well matched. If anything, and I'm probably biased, and I don't apologise for that, we were marginally better than them. We had more possession than them. I believe that's a statistic which has been published and now it's out there. We certainly had more passes inside their penalty area, an important statistic, than they did. Shots on target, I don't know, because we had a few shots that the goalkeeper saved, even though they were going wide. But we'll come back to that. I've made it back to the studio, but I'm very, very cold, as were all the 20,000 people watching and the 30 or 35 people who played in the game. We had a whole team of substitutes warming up right through the first half, not because they were about to come on, because they were cold. Just because the sun's out. The sun... Okay, what does Saturday's sun at Fratton Park, for the whole of the Hull game, what does Saturday's sun have in common with Pompey's shooting? Impotent. Harsh word. A lot of men don't like the sound of that word, but the sun was impotent. It had no potency. It represented no threat to us. So those of us who saw the sun this morning early, because it was a 12:30 kickoff, come back to that, thought to ourselves, I think it's just 3 layers, I do. I think it's going to be, it's a t-shirt, a sweatshirt and a coat. It was 4 layers. I had 4 layers on because I'm not as stupid as I used to be. But I was still frozen. No, I didn't bring gloves, a scarf and a hat. I wish I had. But I got so cold that when I finally got home, 2 hours after the final whistle, I had to put on clothes that weren't cold because my clothes were still cold. I don't know how the players managed it, especially players who were born and brought up in a totally different climate to ours. I mean, take, poor old Gus Caballero got quite badly crocked. They were tasty, those 2 fullbacks that Hull had. But Caballero, what does he think playing in a temperature like that? I don't know whether you get temperatures like that during the football season in Paraguay or in Brazil, but, short-sleeved shirts. And the subs were all warming up wearing thermal tights. But, of course, you can wear thermal tights playing a game of football, but it's not a good look. So the sun and Pompey's attacking efforts, their final shot, just lacked any meat. Now, our build-ups, I hope you agree. I don't think I need to go on too much about it. Our build-ups often were very good. Sharp, sometimes fast, sometimes quite intricate. I didn't know that Adams would have a neat back heel, but he did one right in front of me and it worked. It came off. It was a nice little triangle move. We did a lot of good triangle moves in wide areas and they pretty much 99% came off, which is good. And we were good across the park. Everybody had a pretty good game. Everybody around me was nodding approvingly whenever Connor Ogilvie was anywhere near the ball. Regan Poole was inch perfect. Our fullbacks had a great game, both defending and going forward. And in midfield, there's nothing left to be said about Marlon Pack and Adams. They are fantastic in front of the back four and going forward as well. Pack encourages Adams to go forward more than he does. And when Adams goes forward, he wins so many 50-50s. He wins some 60-40s. He's the 40. You wouldn't want to be tussling with him. I spoke to somebody at the game who said that he'd had a chat with Adams and what a lovely bloke he is, but how he is not in any way intimidating off the pitch. He is soft-spoken and not as big as he looks on the pitch. That's what this person's main point was. Because he does look like a unit. And we'll come back to units again because Hull had a number of units. They were a big side. They had plenty of skill. Not as much as us, actually. Their best department was their fullbacks, who we had Blair on the right and we had Ali on the left. And in the old-fashioned way, they kept their heels on the touchline. They were spread right across the pitch. They came inside, of course, occasionally, if they were likely to be involved in pressing particularly. But as soon as we got the ball, they went out onto the touchline, and we used them a lot. But we couldn't get past enough. We couldn't get enough opportunities to cross the ball or shoot, because their fullbacks were young and fast and very good at the slide tackle when the cross is about to come in. Number of times Blair skinned his number 3, I think his name was Kumas, and yet Kumas managed to slide in and block the cross. It went for a corner, but we didn't have any luck with our corners. And Ali was taken care of because they doubled up on him. They knew about him. And on occasions when he got the ball and it was one-on-one, one of their midfield players, or it may have been one of their back line, came herring across to double up in his support for his own fullback. So they knew about the threat of Ali. I watched Colby Bishop specifically for several minutes, several times, and he works so hard at keeping both those centre halves tied up. They can't go forward, and they dare not risk, unless it's absolutely necessary, going to help the fullback, because Kolbs spends most of his time keeping both of them tied up. He's still our target man for long balls out. Schmidt in particular looks up with the ball at his feet, and if he's going to go long, he looks for Colby Bishop every time. And again, Colby won an awful lot of ball, including one occasion when he was able to wrestle his central defender backwards and backwards and backwards, just pushing him back. You know, you don't see referees giving fouls if a player is simply pushing his back against the player who's pushing forward at him. So it's a 50-50. And Colby does that so well that on one occasion he was able to take the ball on his chest, which is a real credential of a skilled professional, number 9. I'm going to have to talk about their goal with deep regret, because you can only say that it was a double howler by poor old Seggs. You know, and how must he feel? I watched him trudge back to his position as a number 10, our number 10, after he'd done what he did. If you were there, you know what happened. If you've just managed to catch it on the replays, then you'll know what happened. But it's worth talking about again, because the gentleman I was sat next to, who knows his stuff, I said to him, that was a double howler. And he said triple. I said, really? I don't go back that far in the move. What's the triple? He said, Devlin's pass to Segicic started off the domino effect of the the unfortunate goal that separated the two teams when the final whistle went. He said Devlin's pass, he thought, rather sold Segicic short. And hence the initial, I think it was a sort of a fumble. He was unsure of himself. He nearly lost the ball. And then, you know, the back pass from hell. You just don't back pass the ball a distance of whatever it was, 6 or 10 feet, too close to a goalkeeper who therefore can't pick it up and has to think about walloping it. But if an opponent has sus that that's what you're likely to do, then he's all over it like the proverbial rash, and that's what happened. And so Schmidt is unable to deal with it. It goes free, and their sub, who came on, 25, have to talk about him in a second. What was his name? Watts, I think. Was it? Something like that. Matt Crooks, that's it, Matt Crooks. So that goal went in, and that knocked the stuffing out of everybody. Not just the fans, but the players as well. You could see they took their time, Hull, in coming back and facing up for the restart. They really took their time. One of their players in particular strolled back as slowly as he possibly could, and then took up his position so that we had to wait whilst he did that. And it was all sinking in to Pompey, the Pompey players. We only had, whatever it was, 10 or 12 minutes to bag an equaliser. And we knew that the substitutes would come thick and fast, and they did, but they couldn't work any kind of miracle. So the goal left everybody just with a slightly sick feeling, sort of. I watched Segacic, and he kept his chin up. He kept his resolve. He did an awful lot of sprinting that was even more sprinty than the sprinting he'd done before he felt that he was responsible for the fact that we were one down, which I guess he would be the first to say, it was my fault, I did that. I would be not at all surprised if there was an apology in the dressing room, if he stood on a bench and said, guys, can I have your attention? Forgive me. I will never do that again. Because we all said afterwards, after the moment, we all said, well, why didn't he just hook it into the stands? Give away a corner. A corner's better than a goal any day. In future, he will do that. He will hoof it. But, some footballers, and he might be one, believe that they can play football, play their way out of a bit of a scrape. Well, on this occasion, it didn't happen. And so the game then, from our point of view, petered out. Their keeper got a yellow card for some of the worst time wasting I can remember. And he only got the one yellow card. And even after he got the yellow card, he still indulged in a lot of unnecessary time wasting. Well, necessary from their point of view, because they were delighted with those 3 points. I was looking at their bench from time to time when they were a goal up. And they were A, cock a hoop, B, petrified that they were going to lose the lead, because they knew who they were playing. They were playing a good side. I mean, the groans from the Milton end, half of which was Hull, the groans from the Hull crowd travelling faithful were deafening when 7 minutes went up as the time added on. And we'd have felt the same, wouldn't we? So we understand that. But I want to talk a little bit as well about some of the individual players. We had a look at, I believe he's called Jojo, the Senegalese, is it? Dio. When he came on, we had 2 free kicks in positions where you want to cross the ball. They were wide and they were a little bit deep, just beyond the edge of their penalty area. Perfect for a floated ball into the area. And we'd been doing that for corners and getting nowhere, because they were a big side. Suddenly, we've got 6'4" Jojo out on the pitch. We had 2 free kicks, and sensibly, I think Segacic took both of them. Might be wrong, but on both occasions, Jojo went to the far post and he was picked out. A nice, floaty free kick that he got his head on. He got his head on the first one, and I said they're going to do the same thing again, because, there's no tactic you can employ to negate somebody who is 6'4" and who can jump and is young and strong. If you aim for him and you get the pass right, the cross right, he will get his head on the ball. And the second time he got his head on the ball in a really meaningful way. I'm not saying he was unmarked, but he had an opportunity to direct the ball where he wanted to, but it didn't go there. So I think both of them ended up as goal kicks. But the point is, he was winning the ball at set pieces, and that's what we need. If Shaughnessy's back, it's the job that he does so well. We have missed him. And we have missed Josh Murphy, even though Mill Ali is a very, very good replacement stand-in, whatever he is. Mentioned Adams and Marlon Pack, who were just 100%, 10 out of 10, rock solid, winning so many scraps. That's so important. When I say scraps, I don't mean bits and pieces. I mean combats, so many head-to-heads, 50-50s and so forth, winning so many of them. Ogilvy was jumping out of his skin. He was often getting the better of a centre-forward. They had their number 9, was a big unit and a tall lad, but you don't want to go head-to-head with Connor anywhere, and that includes in the air, even though he's not the tallest, because he can do it. Our other substitutes just didn't have a chance to make a mark. I felt sorry at one point for Chaplin because I saw him standing next to their substitute, the number 25, the guy who put their goal away, because he was huge. I mean, he was enormous. He was almost like one of those giants that you get in Lord of the Rings. He was huge and strong. He wasn't particularly quick, didn't need to be. He did put himself about. He was here, there and everywhere, because he's coming on with 20 minutes to go. Of course, you can afford to run around a lot, which he did. But seeing him standing next to Connor Chaplin, they honestly looked like a dad and his 10-year-old son on their way to the park for a kick around. You know, and I do not mean that offensively about Connor Chaplin in any way at all, because he is such a gifted footballer that, like an awful lot of world-class footballers, you don't need to be big. But it is an enormous contrast, and when you're playing in the Championship, this number 25, at one point, Segacic went up against him and won in the air. I have no idea how, but he did. So it doesn't necessarily masquerade as the be-all and end-all, size and height and meat in the Championship, but there are occasions when it makes a difference. And I think once again today, they had the luck of the draw. They had the meat and menace, although we had plenty of meat and menace in Adams and Pack. But I'm going to put it down to the luck of the draw. They got the lucky goal. It was a lucky goal for them. And I said afterwards, having a beer, to the people we were guests of at the match and enjoyed their company throughout. It was very insightful. I said to them, we don't get that happening to us. I can't think of an occasion in this campaign, this season, when our opponents gifted us a goal like that. We don't have that kind of luck, or at least we haven't yet. Maybe we are owed it. Some people think that there is a karma about these things, but we haven't seen it yet, and we'd like to. So the ups and downs and the ups and downs, and here we are, post-Hull, and on the bungee jump of this month, we're down. Does that mean we're going to come bouncing straight up again? Well, we all hope so, don't we? We certainly deserve another 3-1 away win, playing like the majestic champions in waiting of the Championship. Pompey 0, Hull 1.